Welcome to the Fit 40 podcast, where we take all the confusing, conflicting fitness and nutrition information and break it down so that you can live your healthiest, strongest, most energized life. I'm your host, Brian Fitzsimmons. Let's get it started. All right, what's up, everybody? Today we have a special guest on the Fit 40 podcast. We have Chris Heskett. He is an incredible coach that I met when I was in Phoenix at Coaching Con. And just to tell you a little bit about this guy, he's got his exercise science degree. He's got from Bloomsburg University. He's got his CSCS. So love another brother with their CSCS. Precision Nutrition Level 1, HKC Kettlebell Cert, back pain relief for life. He's a husband and a father to a little girl, and they're actually expecting number 2 next month. So This guy knows what he's talking about when it comes to exercising, staying on his nutrition with the little ones running around. So I have no doubt we're going to have an incredible conversation and learn a ton of stuff in the process. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you for having me on, Brian.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So before we jump into the nitty gritty of the fitness and nutrition, how excited are you for number 2?
Pretty exciting. Actually, my wife's down getting imaging done. So she just sent me like the 3D pictures right before we started the call. So it's pretty cool. It's very real now. It's end of next month. She's going to be here. So it's like, oh, well, we're going to have 2 running around. This will be fun.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. It should be a very exciting time.
It is. It'll be a big change of things. I'm going to have to turn into like a morning workout person because there's no way I'm going to have the energy to work out at night. So that's going to be a big change.
Yeah. Now let's talk about that a little bit, because I know like when you have the first, it seems like everybody kind of just does like a full 180 on their plan. Like they have to adapt in some way, shape, or form. Did you experience any of that with baby number 1? Like, did you like make some drastic changes, or did it kind of stay similar to what you were doing?
Everything just gets pushed off earlier or later. So like her bedtime is like 8 p.m. So it's, guess what? Like I'm not working out beforehand because my wife works full time. So she gets home and it's like, we want to spend time together. We also need to like tag team taking care of this little demon child who wants to run around and stick her fingers in every socket available. So you need tag team on that. You need, you're both there. And so it's after she goes to bed, that's when it's easiest to get your workout in, which that's, 8 p.m., 8:30, or you wake up earlier. That's your options. Like you can try and do middle of the day.
Mm-hmm.
I find for dads, it might be a little bit easier because the moms are more willing to hand it off. But a lot of times for moms, which I think both of us target moms, like it's a little challenging to be like, here, husband, watch the baby. I'm going to go work out. More often than not, they're not going to do that. My wife's not that way. She's like, no, I want to spend time.
Yeah, it's like the ladies don't trust us or something. I don't know why.
There's that. Or, I mean, for my wife, I know like she works, so she sees her a little bit in the morning and she wants to spend as much time with her at the end of the day as possible. So it's like, when does she go to bed? 8, 8:30. After that, you have free time. That's when you have to get your workout in.
Yeah. And that's a good point. You just got to kind of take free time when you can, right? And just make the best of it.
Yep. However, I will say with my wife and I used to be like really late eaters. I worked in the gym for a long time. So it's like, don't get home till 8 p.m. That's when dinner is going to be 8, 8:30, sometimes even 9 o'clock. My wife used to work evening shift as a nurse. So she was used to eating pretty late. So since having our daughter, we've actually like been very structured with the times we eat. Like we were always great eaters, but it'd be like, we're gonna eat lunch, I don't know, 3 p.m. and then we'll eat dinner at like 8:30. No, it's like breakfast is at 8, lunch is at 12:30, and dinner's at 6:30 at the latest. And if you miss those, all hell breaks loose.
Hey, structure helps. Structure definitely helps.
It has definitely like it's made workout more challenging, but it's definitely helped our meal times which has actually improved our sleep quality. So
okay,
take a win there.
There you go. The consistency definitely pays off. It's like that Jocko Willink quote, like discipline equals freedom.
Yeah. And weekends we get a lot more shit done because we used to like pre-kids like just chill out. And like, we'll get started around 11 p.m. It's like, no, like sleeping in on the weekend is like 7:30. So that's like sleeping in. Like most of the time, my daughter's up 6:30, 7 o'clock. So it's
Hmm.
up. Breakfast is an hour later. So 8 o'clock. And then it's like, okay, we're productive by like 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. We're doing shit. Versus
Yeah.
like before, it's like, we'll get it done whenever. Wait, it's 3 p.m. on a Sunday. How'd that happen? It's almost Monday again.
Yeah, well, it's times like this. I'm glad me and Amanda are a little far off from that because we're still in that lazy weekend mode.
There's days I do miss it, but that's just not reality anymore. So
Yeah, yeah. Hey, and in a way, it can pay off big time, like you were saying. Like, I mean, if you have to be structured, shit gets done.
yeah, you don't have a choice because
Yeah.
when you have a 1 year old screaming at you, they can't communicate other than like she has some sign language, but they can't
Mhm.
communicate in any other way other than I'm hungry. I'm going to throw a temper tantrum. And when she's hungry, she also gets clingy. So it makes it even harder to actually get the meal on the table because she wants you to hold her the whole time while she's screaming in your face. And it's your fault that the food's not on time. You knew 8 o'clock, 8:30 at the latest, and you pushed it off to 8:45. So yeah, it definitely forces you to have that structure unless you want the screaming child in your face.
Yeah, sounds like a human alarm clock. Not
It
too bad.
basically is. It basically is. But once you
Yeah,
figure that out, it's super. It's just like okay, like dinner can't be any later than 6:30. Like as long as you follow that, like you get everything done beforehand, you're good. You don't have to deal with the screaming child. But if
yeah,
you put it off, yeah, good luck.
yeah, yeah. Understandable. Now, speaking of like the young ones, let's dial it back to when you were a young lad. What is it that got you into fitness in the first place? Because I love asking fitness people this question because it's such a range. So, what was the reason you started getting your feet wet with lifting weights, exercising?
So lifting weights was I wanted to get girls.
Yeah.
um, so it goes back a little bit further. I did cross country my freshman year of high school. So I went from a very small private school. It was a Catholic private school of like my graduating class was 21 people. I went from that to public high school, which was I think my class was like 400. So big change for me. I know for some people that's still pretty small, but for me it was a big change. So my parents kind of forced me into sports. So just to like get to know people before going to public school, because
Yeah.
I'm generally pretty introverted, and back then I was very insecure, very quiet, like stay in the back. So I kind of like got into fitness. I'm super nerdy. So I started like learning everything I could about cross country. But then at the same time as like all the girls want like these big jacked ripped guys. So it's like, well, if I want girls, I should go that direction. Then I will get girls. It's funny because we know that's not how it happens. It's like, no, maybe you should just get like confident
Yep.
with yourself. But through the process, that helped develop my confidence. But yeah, I wanted to get girls and I was really shy and awkward. So it was very difficult to do.
Yeah, it's that classic case of like when guys finally get ripped and shredded and muscular, they only get attention from other dudes. It never
Yes.
ends up like you never have that like imaginary situation where girls are flocking to you and you're like Arnold Schwarzenegger on the beach, like, yeah, here I am.
Yeah.
Nope.
Not, nope. That's only movies. And so I went through that in real life. And yeah, it was, what do you do for triceps? What do you do to get bigger chest, dude? How do I get abs like you? Like, where's the girls? Where's the chicks? None.
Yeah.
Crickets. Like, oh, that's just because I'm weird. I'm awkward. Okay, maybe I should work on that.
Yeah. Speaking of the triceps, I always love getting that question. It's like, bro, what do you do for the triceps? I'm like, the same shit you do. I was just
Yeah,
like, my body responds better to the same shit that you do. And then that opens up the conversation where it's like, some of us have advantages that others don't.
for sure. And
Yeah.
my big thing is just for most people, it's just stop overthinking it and work harder.
Yeah. Pretty
Like
much.
instead of trying to do like 14 different tricep exercises, do like two and take them to absolute failure. You'll get
Yep.
better results.
Yep. And I'll tell you, if anybody's listening right now that wants the best arm routine there is, like you just said, pick like two exercises for each body part, like a tricep, bicep, and shoulders, and do that 3 or 4 times a week. And
Yeah.
that's the fastest my arms ever grew in college, doing it 3, 4 times a week. It's the exposure, not the let's obliterate it in one day.
Yeah. I mean, that was my best arm growth when I was like bodybuilding, it would be a little bit of volume on like my chest and back days with them. And then it was like the dedicated arm day was still only 3 bicep, 3 tricep exercises. Like that was it. It wasn't, it's a little bit more than 2, but it was just 3. A lot of people be like, I'm going to hit like 14 different bicep exercises, 14 different tricep exercises. Like, dude, like, how are you spending an hour and a half on arm day? Like that should be your leg
Yeah.
day only. Like arm
Well,
day is like 45 minutes.
it kind of goes back to what you were saying. Like you would see like the muscular dudes getting girls, and you're like, I got to do what they're doing. And it's like when you see somebody with a laundry list of like exercises for any body part, you're like, this is what all the people that struggle are doing. And the
Yes.
people that actually are getting results are doing exactly what you're saying. Like less variety, less number of exercises, more exposure, more intensity.
Yep. Just do the same boring shit really, really hard. Like just
Yep.
go in. And people don't like to hear that because they're always looking for the magic bullet. They're like, oh, if I do this and have to work out less hard, like don't have to put as much intensity into it, it'll be easier. I'll get results. And it's no, like squats aren't going anywhere. Just get better at squats.
Yeah.
And it
Now,
sucks. I
being
hate
that
high rep squats.
oh my God. We had to do 20 rep ones in high school, and
Fuck that.
there was a line out the door of guys yakking.
Yep. Yep.
But that was like in our weight room, it was like a seal of approval, like a turning into a man, I guess.
The 20 rep breathing squats, man, that's something. Like if you want
Yeah.
a challenge, like do that, that'll test your mental fortitude.
Yep. And especially if you're like, we were going off percentages, so none of us could really bullshit. So,
Oh
like,
yeah.
and for anybody listening, going off of percentages is a really good way to keep yourself in check.
Yep.
Like, when you know what you should be able to be lifting instead of just feeling it, like, total game changer.
Yeah. When I moved from bodybuilding to power, like more powerlifting style workout, and they got better results, it's because I everything was based off percentages. Like, okay, here's what instead of like you said, I'm going to go in and I'm going to squat 225 for the 14th time in a row, or I'm going to go in and this week it's 85% for 3 sets of 5. Like, oh, that's heavy.
Yeah.
Oh crap.
Like,
That's not
you,
what I want to do.
yeah, you start dreading the workouts a little bit, and every single set is like questioning life. You're like, is this worth it? Is it really worth it?
But then you see results and you're like, it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the key. Like that I know on this podcast, especially, I probably sound like a broken record. It's like you fall in love with the results. You don't fall in love with the different types of exercises or the like certain rep ranges. It's like you do what you need to do to get results, and you love that.
Yep. I mean, my workout program's super boring. People like, I'll have clients and other people like, what's your workout routine? I'm like, it's basically the same shit. Like I love like the old school like powerlifting big 3. I've modified it because it tends to get me really beat up and injured, but I'm still gonna bench, squat, and have a deadlift variation every single week. Like
Yep.
that's kind of how I set my programs up. So it's
There
like
you
those
go.
are in there and they're not going to change. And the accessory movements, there's nothing fancy. It's like yesterday for my upper day, it's like bench press, pull ups, incline bench, dumbbell bench, and then chest supported row. Like nothing fancy. Guess what I'm going
Nope.
to do next week? The same shit.
And the beauty of those like nothing fancy workouts is that like those are like they are the best workouts for beginners. Like,
Yeah.
and you can do them intermediate, you can do them advanced, even though most of us advanced people get so beat up, we don't stick with the huge lifts. But like anybody listening right now is usually like, when it comes to training age, usually like in that first 3 years. And that's when you can get away with like the beginner workouts and make sure that they provide a shit ton of benefit.
Yeah.
Like,
And
hey, mm-hmm.
the only difference I have from like a beginning workout is what you said, like get beat up. I now do like pause barbell bench press, pause back squat. It's way harder. I have to go way lighter. Yeah,
Yep.
that's a way to like check the ego of 2 to 3 second pause at the very bottom of the lift, and then bench or the squat. Same thing. Like just chill out with 350 on your back at the bottom for 3 seconds, and then stand back up 5
Yep.
times. It's not super fun.
Yep. And I could already hear like clients asking, like, why are we doing pauses? Why are we doing eccentrics? And it's like that specific reason
Yep.
because it gives your body a little bit of a break, but it makes it even harder and increases other physical capabilities at the same time, right?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
just doing that, like for your clients listening, like you're going to build a ton of confidence in the bottom position, which is always the scariest position.
Yup.
You're going to build a lot of control in your body, and that's going to down the road lead to way better results. Because when you do try to push yourself with a regular workout, like I always do, a pause, and then I do like a max rep, which is like in the 8 to 12 rep range for the same lift. So it's like when I move to that, which it might be the same weight, but it's like, oh my god, this is so much better. Like that seems scary when I was warming up to it. Now it's like, oh, that's way better.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest benefits of that specifically is just learning tension. Like for
Mm-hmm.
people that are listening right now that are like early on in their careers, like doing the training and weightlifting, that's probably one of the biggest things that people learn along the way, how to tense up and how to like make sure that our muscles are protecting everything around it so that we don't get hurt.
Yeah,
Like I'm convinced
100.
that's why people like when they go say, "Oh, I was moving stuff this weekend," and they come in hurt, you're like, probably weren't tensing up, were you?
No, no, it was just like, why did you get hurt picking up a 15-pound box when you just deadlifted 315? Like, oh, you just like picked it up super lazy. Like that's
Yeah.
why you like rounded
And
your back.
yeah. And this is
It's the
coming
Family Guy
from
episode.
what's
Did you ever
that?
see that one? Did you ever see the Family Guy episode where he's like trying to like move the car? He's like, so what you want to do is take your legs completely out of it
Yeah.
and just use your back. And then immediately you just hear this like branch snapping sound.
They nailed it on the head.
Yep. That's exactly like when people are most injuries, like back injuries, happen outside the gym.
Yep.
A lot of mine have.
Or in my case, it happened during warm-ups. Like people are
Yes.
so worried about the heavy weight, but so many people that get hurt will tell you if it happens in the gym, it's usually during warm-ups because you're not
Hmm.
paying enough attention, being like mindful of the way you're moving, the tension that you're creating, and that's where the problems happen.
Yeah. Because you're lazy with the warm ups.
Hmm.
I still find myself sometimes doing this when I'm like not super conscious of my workout. I'm just trying to get through it. But you're supposed like it's a warm up for your big lift. So you're supposed to treat every single warm up like it's your last set. Like you are
Yep.
practicing along the way. And the beauty of that is if you do it, you can figure out if like, hey, these squats feel off today. Like my hip hurts and I only have 135 on the bar and I'm going to 275 today.
Hmm.
Well, maybe today is not the day, or maybe we just need to go in and do some mobility work or some activation work. Oh, now I feel better. Cool. Go do your thing. But if you just kind of like go through it, all of a sudden you throw like 255 and you're like, okay, last warm up set, snap. Oh,
Yeah. And you get into that mode where it's like your body's giving you nothing and you're like, I'm just going to heave it up one way or another. It's getting up there. That's usually where stuff goes south.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
But
I'm
that's a
just
good
going to
point that you
just do it.
made about like being mindful, like being in touch with your body. Cause that's one of the most overlooked things with fitness, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I know for like the lift that's injured me the most is deadlifts. Like I've had like one or two injuries with squat, like one injury with bench. Everything else has all been related to deadlifts, mostly because of ego lifting, but it's being in touch with your body and being like, hey, does this feel right? Does it not? And when you treat every single lift from, when I was like really hardcore into deadlifting, I was in the fives almost every single week. So you want to treat 135 like it's 500. Regardless of how easy it feels, you want to set up and practice like it's that. And then same thing when you warm up 185, 225, all the way up and see what's going on.
Hmm.
So I have an injury to my right hip. I might get a lot of sciatic there. So if I'm deadlifting and that's really acting up, probably should go and work on that. Or maybe today's not the day to push it because when I do, guess what? Bad things happen.
Yep. Yep. And I know like when I was powerlifting, one of the biggest things, like the biggest helps was just taking a cycle or two to work on like unilateral stuff and
Yep.
just like almost give yourself like a little bit of a bodybuilding off season. So like if people are listening right now who love the bench squat deadlift, like one of the best things you could do for squats is to get really good at Bulgarian split squats. For
Mm-hmm.
deadlifts, one of the best things you could do is get really good at single leg deadlifts. And
Yep.
for bench, like doing some alternating pressing or like single arm pressing, you're going to be using less weight, but it makes sure that both sides are getting equal work so one doesn't take over the other and cause problems.
Yeah. I love slash hate unilateral work. Like on paper, you love it, and then you do it. You're like, this is the worst. Why did I put this in the program?
Yep. Yep. And then you get
And then,
back to the bar and everything feels foreign and you're like, this sucks.
yes, but it does help with injury prevention. I always keep unilateral work in throughout. Like every leg day has some sort of unilateral work. Every upper body day has some sort of unilateral work. But a lot of people do avoid unilateral pressing. A lot of people avoid that, and they avoid unilateral posterior chain lower body work. So like your hamstring and glute development, most people do like lunges and step ups and that kind of stuff, but they never do like you said, single leg RDLs or single leg curls. One, because they're challenging and difficult and you have to check your ego. But same thing with
Yep.
pressing. Like, no, it sucks. Like if you haven't done a single arm bench press, like alternating presses aren't bad, but go and do a single arm press. It's also a core exercise. You feel like you're about to fall off the bench, especially with heavy weight. So it's challenging. People don't
Yeah.
like challenging, but
And
everyone will
that,
do a single arm row.
yeah, exactly. Everybody loves their rows.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what people also miss out on, like with the single arm pressing, they realize your core is not just your abs, it's your upper back, it's your lats, it's your glutes. Like all that whole area gets lit up when you're trying to brace yourself to press one thing that's trying to tip you over.
Yeah. If your feet aren't on the ground, like you don't have good foot stability, you're going to fall off the bench. If your upper back and lats aren't tight, you're going to fall off the bench. If your core's not there, you're going to twist and fall off the bench. So everything, what you're saying, creating tension, everything has to be super tight so you don't do it, which is, I love that for the beginner clients. If you
Mm-hmm.
just do single arm pressing, some single leg work, maybe not like a super newbie, but someone who's had like maybe 3 to 6 months of training under their belt, you start throwing that stuff in. It forces them to teach tension
Yep.
because
Yep.
you otherwise you can't do the lift. So it kind of force teaches someone like, okay, this is how I create tension through the body, and then that's how I'm going to stay safe when I go back to doing like a 2-arm press. I can create that tension easily because I know what that feels like. Okay, I can create the same thing. Great foot placement. Upper back is nice and tight. Oh, that feels way better on my shoulders.
Yep, absolutely. Because I think that, like, especially from our position, being in a virtual setting, like being remote, it can be tough to teach
Yeah.
people how to brace properly because it is a very hands-on thing that usually works really well. But there are ways around it that we can teach. Like that's a really good way is like the unilateral work because when you create instability, it forces them to stabilize.
Right.
And another thing you could do also is like stuff like dead bugs or like any type of core work, because I know one of your certifications is hard style. Could you tell the audience a little bit about like what that entails and like why it's so good for teaching tension?
Yeah. So if you're not familiar with kettlebell certifications, I have Hardstyle, which is HKC. The one a lot of people think of is RKC, which is your Russian kettlebell. It's the same, basically same organization. RKC is just like another level.
Yeah.
That's like your kettlebell people. I'm not one of those people. I worked for someone who was one of those people. I'm like, you believe like kettlebells are like descendant from God and is the tool of all tools. Like, I'm not one of those people. But HKC is great because when you do your cert, it's like kettlebell swing, goblet squat, Turkish get up, which is the most terrible lift ever. Slash best for the general population to learn, but awful exercise.
Yep.
So you learn those 3 things, and all 3 lifts, you have to create tension. Goblet squat, if you go heavy enough, it's basically a moving plank. Like So when you set up a proper goblet squat where the positioning, your forearms are tucked in, and if you were to go down onto the ground, you're basically in a forearm plank. So as you do that squat, if you have a challenging weight for you, as you do that squat, that weight's pulling you forward. So you have to use your core the entire time to resist, which is why there are some limits to the goblet squat of you're never going to, like most people never go past like doing a 275-pound kettlebells. Like kind of like one, you run out of room. Like most people aren't big enough. Like my wife, she got to that point before we moved her to barbell back squats. We had to move her because she's 5'3". Like she couldn't hold them up. Like there wasn't the physically enough space. But it's a core exercise in addition to a lower body exercise. So it creates that tension the entire time, which you don't necessarily get with a barbell back squat the first time you do it. Kettlebell swings, amazing exercise for a lot of people, but most people do it wrong. So learning how to actually like engage your hips and use your posterior chain. It's not the CrossFit bullshitty American style kettlebell swing. Those I don't do with anyone. It's like a posterior chain explosive movement.
Yep.
And if you don't do it right, you're going to throw your back out. When you do it right, it's basically just a fast RDL. Like that's the same movement. It's the same. It's just faster. And then Turkish get up. If you've never done it, it's basically holding something. Like if you do a floor press, holding that weight there and standing up and getting back down. So when it's a challenging weight, if you mess up any part of that movement, the weight's tumbling. So you have to create tension and be very conscious of your body position and the position of the weight the entire time, from the time you're to the ground to standing up all the way back down to the ground. So it was a great certification to take those and then move it to the average person who's just trying to move better, lose some weight, build a little bit of muscle, look better naked. Like,
Yep.
Not trying to do anything crazy, but that was a great certification for learning those and then being able to teach that to the average person.
Absolutely. I feel like the kettlebell swing is like a good litmus test to know if you got a good trainer or not. Cause like that was like the hardest thing to learn, how to teach somebody how to do a proper kettlebell swing.
Number one thing I coach as a like in-person trainer was always kettlebell swings.
Yeah.
Always. Like it was just, most people never use their hips. Most people, they're locked up, they're tight. They don't know how to activate their glutes. You're lifting all the time with your low back, kind of like that joke I said earlier from Family Guy. Like that's what most people do. Like very rarely can people actually engage their lifts. So it's like, now we're going to do something really fast. Can you actually coach it? And most people are also used to slow and controlled. So now it's like, let's do something fast and explosive and not necessarily like it's supposed to be under control, but most people don't have the control yet. So yeah, same. It's like constantly coaching it. And you get a few funny cues with it that help it stick.
Well, now that you said it, what are your favorite cues to throw out there?
Okay. So if I had a pretty good relationship with a client, I would say like snap your hips like your partner's in front of you.
Everyone knows that move.
Yep. Everybody knows that move. Like snap it quick, like they're right in front of you naked. It's like, okay, I got it. Like as soon as you say that, he's like, oh, okay, I got it. But that was number one. Let's see, a few. Other than that, most of them were born. That one usually got people right away.
Yeah,
it's been 2 years since I've had to coach someone on it, so I'm trying to think of some of the other cues.
I know.
I'd just throw shit at the wall until it would stick with someone.
Yeah, because everybody knows who's coached a lot of people. Like you could say one cue that connects with like 5 people, and then there's going to be 10 people that it doesn't mean shit. Like they're like, yeah, I don't know what you mean by that. But I know one of my favorites that I stole from I think it was Ed Cohn. Like when he would get ready for the deadlift, he would quote unquote open up the taint. And then that pretty much, like when somebody's trying to do that, they do a pretty good hinge.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that another one for like getting into proper positions. Like imagine like you're carrying groceries in and you have to shut the door like behind you with your butt. and automatically people like do a hinge. It's like, that's the position. So perfect for kettlebells or RDLs. Like, do that thing. Now just
Yep.
do that every time you do it. Oh,
Yep.
that's the movement. Yes. That's it there. Just shut the door behind you with your butt.
There you go. That's like the number one easiest like reference for a lot of people, but I mean, yeah, some I've thrown every cue I could possibly think of, and I'm sure you have too, where it's like just nothing hits. No, absolutely nothing works because so many people are like disconnected from their posterior chain.
Yeah. You can't see it. It's not a mirror muscle. So it's like
Yep.
you can't really see it. And but it's like eventually they have that light bulb moment. So it's just keeping them injury free and safe until that time. Another thing we did was like setting them up a little bit with like a wall behind them. So they're like say 12 inches away from the wall. And it's like slide your hips back until your butt touches the wall behind you. Feel the stretch in your hamstrings. Awesome.
Yep.
Stretching the hamstring worked really well for a lot of people until I got yoga people in, and then they're like going all the way to the floor. Like, I don't feel anything. Like, that doesn't apply to you.
Yeah, you get that one super flexible person, and it's like, well, throw out the book on this one. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah. This worked for literally 99% of people. You are the exception. They're like, why? Because you're actually flexible. You're not
Yeah.
like a 45-year-old dude who has never done mobility work since high school.
Yep. But it is interesting how those people usually do say that they feel like their hamstrings are tight because,
Yeah.
like, we know, like, it's not always something you could stretch out.
Yeah. Um, with that population, I found that it was a lot of weaknesses. They're like
Hmm.
overstretching, overstretching, overstretching. It's like, no, they're your that muscle group is just weak. And it's creating that tension to keep you safe. It just feels really tight and uncomfortable. But when you actually like build up strength there, all of a sudden that tension goes away.
Yeah. And it's kind of like that with like any stretch. The second you experience some sort of a load, your brain connects to that area and says, like, all right, we're confident now. Like, you don't need all the help that I've been giving you up to this point.
Right. That was a lot of people think like yoga is a great way to uh, prevent injuries, and it can be. But the worst thing you can do is be like weak and hyper flexible.
Yep.
Like now you're going into these extreme ranges of motion. So for the general person, the areas you get injured the most tend to be at the extremes of your ranges of motion. Like nobody necessarily gets injured standing up straight. It's when you bend over, you get into a stretched position, like your low back is now stretched out, your hamstrings are stretched out. That's when you get a injury. So your body, when it's weak, doesn't want to go into those extremes. So you need to build up that strength. So that was like yoga forces you to go through those extremes. So we would have issues of people who do yoga and Pilates all the time getting injuries, and they're like, I do core work. It's like, it's not your core, it's your hamstrings or your glutes.
Yep.
Um, because they were just hyper flexible and they kind of force themselves into those ranges of motion. Like, no, let's, build up with squats and deadlifts and get your body confident in those extremes. And then you're going to be less injured. You don't need more stretching and foam rolling. Like,
Yep.
that's the last thing you need.
It's like that classic case of like people gravitate towards what they're good at. And usually when they
Mhm.
do nothing but that one thing, it leaves a lot to be desired on in other areas. Cause like if
Yeah.
we love strength training all the time and that's all we do, we're gonna get really stiff. We're gonna look like that like typical bodybuilder that like gets stuck kind of like this.
Yeah. Bad
And
luck.
the second you have to like scratch your back or the second like you take a bench press past the point of where your like where that stiffness is, pop or something hurts. It's like you never want to be caught at one end of either spectrum. In the middle is where you're going to feel your best.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't like to hear that because they're just viewing, like, I know myself, like when I was learning about all this, I'm looking at professional bodybuilders and powerlifters. If you're a yoga person, you might be looking at, I'm not sure what the actual term is, but master yogis. I think that's the term.
Yeah,
Um,
something like
or
that.
if it's a marathon runner, you're looking at a professional runner to learn, which is fine. But you have to realize like you're not a pro. And if you want to just feel good, look at the list of injuries at any marathon runner or any powerlifter. And it's like, ooh, they're in pain all the time. So it's like if you just want to be injury free, you want to feel good, have great energy, like you said, meet somewhere in the middle. Like you need to take a little bit of all those things and then find the thing you really, really enjoy. For us, it's lifting. Really
Yep.
like that. So you're going to spend more time there, but you have to do the other things like mobility work and cardio. So you don't neglect that. You stay injury free. You improve your cardiovascular health so you can actually recover from your workouts and you stay healthy so you don't get winded going up one flight of stairs.
Yep.
And you yeah, what I said already, injury free. So there's other qualities of fitness. We're not professional athletes. We're just trying to like be fit and healthy for our entire lives. So don't go to the extremes.
Exactly. And it almost gets back to that concept of like, I know, like in NCI, the company that we're both in the mentorship for, like they are really big on using triangles to explain
Yeah.
certain things. And it's kind of like this scenario where it's like you want to imagine that there's 3 points: there's performance, there's aesthetics, and then there's overall health. You have a little dot that you can put at any point inside of that triangle. But just know when you're going up super performance, ultra marathoners, bodybuilding competitions, power lifters, they're going all in on performance. So the like aesthetics for these like runners and the power lifters really doesn't matter as much, and their overall health is going to take a hit. Then
Yep.
you go to aesthetics only. These bodybuilders are not lifting a ton of weight, like they're not running marathons, and they're also not in the greatest health. And then you get all these people that are all in on the health only, and they're not going to be the most strong, they're not going to be the most like performance based like best person out there, but they're going to be the healthiest. So it's kind of like you got to find your sweet spot.
Yeah. And that's not to say like go to like you have to pick one. It's just finding where it is, and then you can move that dot throughout the year. Like I'm going from like dropping like my body fat got a little too high, so I went into a calorie deficit, lost some weight, focused more on health, and now I'm going to focus like move that dot a little bit over to aesthetics as I try to build a little bit of muscle and strength. In my current phase, I'm like week 2 of like you can move that dot a little bit. It's just a matter of how far. You don't want to move like the dot all the way up and then to like the 3 different corners. You want to just move like, okay, we're just going to move it over a little bit here and we're going to move it over here. But you can't necessarily chase all of them at once and see amazing progress either. Like if you're like, I'm just going to go in the middle, that's also a great place to be stagnant and not really see the improvements you want. If you want to see that, if you're just working out for fun and overall general health and general performance, like there's clients that they're like, yeah, I just go to the gym. Like I just want to eat well. My blood works great. I just know I need to be active. And if you can be consistent with that, great. I also know like maybe 10 people like that over like the thousands I've trained. So if you need something to stay motivated, it's like at some points you're going to need to chase. Like right now, we're just like focusing on your health, or we're going to focus a little bit more on performance. Like you're okay, great. You're training for like a tough mudder. Like great, we're going to move more performance based. Or your first 5K, great. Just know that these other areas are going to suffer a little bit, but we'll
Yeah,
come back to those in a couple months and focus on those things.
exactly. It really just comes down to the awareness of like where you want to be and where you actually are at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And I think a lot of people think when you make a decision, like, I'm going to go to the gym and you make a goal, like, that's the goal for the next like 20 years of your life. Like, no, like, it can be your goal for 3 months.
Yeah.
I've had clients where they're like, I'm training for my first half marathon, and we take 6 months to train for that or 9 months to train for that. It's like, great. Afterwards, they're like, I also want to build muscle and do all these other things. Like, no, you're going to get hurt, but I've done that in the past. And then usually it's, and how'd that go? Oh, I got hurt and couldn't do the half marathon or whatever it is. Like, yeah. Okay, so we're going to focus just on this. And after that, we have a very hard set date of here's your race date. After that, we can chase a health goal, aesthetic goal, or whatever. It's like, okay, so this is just my goal for the next 9 months. I can focus on that and then move to something else. Same thing with weight loss. Like I like to teach my clients and others, okay, like weight loss isn't going to be forever. You might focus on that for the next 12, 16, maybe even 26 weeks, but have like a little bit of a diet break to chill out and maybe focus on some other things because nobody wants to diet year round. Like it's really fucking boring. It's not super motivating. So maybe you just focus on it for a shorter period of time, then take a break and then go back to it. And then over the course of, say, a year or 2 years, you're now at your ultimate goal, but you actually hit your goal rather than like chasing it and going through the yo-yo cycle that you have been for the past decade or 2 decades. Like, no, let's just take 2 years, plan things out. Every summer, like we're going into summer right now as we're recording this, like every summer you have vacations every single weekend. Like you go to the beach. I know that's like, I had a bunch of clients like this when I worked in the gym. Like from Thursday through Sunday, you go to the beach. You think it's a great time to try to lose weight? Probably not. You know what's a great time for? Working on your health, trying to build some muscle for the days you're actually back here, and then you go and relax.
Wait,
Like,
so
let's
just to
focus
be
on these
clear,
things.
you're saying sex on the beach is like having like 3 or 4 of those is not good for weight loss?
Yeah, no, that's not good.
Damn it.
No.
All right, I'm gonna have to adjust my plan a little bit. Damn it.
But that's you if you're chasing, like that's just a unreasonable, like when you think logically, like yes, I would love to be super shredded to go to the beach and have all this alcohol and eat tons of funnel cake. Like that would be awesome. Unless you're like in your 20s taking a whole bunch of drugs, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So like our audience, like I know yours is Fit 40 podcast, so over 40. My audience is mostly over 35. So that's just not reality anymore. It's not going to happen. And most people don't want to take a bunch of steroids for obvious reasons. So just change your goal to be something that's actually attainable during that time. Hey, we're going to chase weight maintenance and we're going to try to build some muscles. So when school gets back in session in August, you can double down. Oh, holidays are always crazy from early November through beginning of December. Maybe that's a great time to do a reverse diet and plan on weight maintenance instead of trying to like struggle through it. I had clients on both ends. I give them the option every single year. I make recommendations to them, but ultimately it's their choice. A lot of them who tried to push through struggled to get results. Those of them who just focused on reverse dieting and building muscle, amazing results come January. That first month, it was great. They just focused on other things. They didn't stress out throughout the holiday season. Boom, January, hard date, diet mode, ready to go. The others were feeling a little burnt out come January 1st. Some of them I had to reverse diet. So I can only help so much. I've made recommendations, but ultimately, like if you are dead set on something, I'm going to try to help you the best I can.
Yeah.
Because I know, like, I mean, as you probably know, people go behind your backs a little bit, even when they have coaches, and just kind of do what they want. Or even if you give them a plan, they don't fully commit. So it's always more powerful to have someone like, what do you think you should do? Like, here's the logical facts. Now I'm going to try to push through. Okay. Here's how we're going to try to make this work.
Yeah. And it gets into that like whole topic of client-based coaching instead of like just sitting on a high horse saying, this is my program. If you don't follow it, you suck. Like
Right.
that's, I mean, being both precision nutrition level 1 certified, we know like that's just not how it
Yeah.
goes, right?
It's the absolute worst way to coach anybody of like, here's the plan, just do this. And every coach starts there. Early on, I was the same way. Here's the perfect plan. You follow this plan, you will get results. The 1 out of 10 people who followed it got amazing results. The
And
9
that's your
others, which is,
testimonial.
yep. And the other, which is, a 90% failure rate, the other 9 didn't follow it. So that's why, like, I don't do meal plans. People ask, like, can you give me a meal plan? Like, it doesn't fucking work. Why? Because on week 4, you're going to fall off. And they're like, no, I don't. Like, then why aren't you following the meal plan you have from a couple years ago? Well, I don't know if it's right. And it's like, if it was developed by like a decent coach, like it was right. I had someone who's in my audience. I've coached her for a long time, and she'll reach out like, what's my meal plan? I'm like, I've sent you 4 or 5 over the past like 10 years of coaching. Like just follow one of them because the macros haven't changed. And she'll be like, well, that seems really high carb. I'm like, okay, well, we can bump up the fat. Well, I was 80, so I know like fats, it's really hard for me to eat fat. I'm like, so what are you going to eat? Like, well, you got carbs, fat, and protein. Those are your macronutrients. You struggle with protein and can only eat so much before you get bored. So what are you eating?
Yeah.
We got carbs, we got fat to fill in.
Well, because
Oh,
it's this inner voice of every little thing we hear on Instagram, every little thing we see on social media that says, this is bad for you. this is bad for you. To be optimal, you got to do
I just
this,
saw one before this podcast.
right? And
It was oatmeal.
it just puts people in a horrible place because then you're asking the question, so what are we going to eat? And nobody can actually
Exactly.
answer that question.
So I saw literally right before this, the comments. I like seeing the comments because it can create great content for me. I'm probably going to be a reel this week. So it was on oatmeal, and oatmeal creates this insulin spike. Like people were commenting like, oatmeal creates insulin spike. It's bad for you. Like, what? We're right now in this world of like glucose spikes, in blood sugar, like trying to keep it as low as possible. Well, yeah, your body produces insulin to get your blood sugar back to normal. It's not bad. If you're a healthy person, that's normal. Like a transient spike in insulin isn't going to negatively affect
Yeah.
you. Constantly high levels of insulin, different story. So that's where like if you have diabetes, we might not want to go super high carb with you. We probably want to go like low to moderate carb, bring those down, lose some weight, improve your insulin sensitivity, drop your A1C. But then a lot of people get stuck in like, well, low carb worked for me when I lost weight, so I should always be low carb. It's like, no, once you get down to like lower levels of body fat, your body can handle carbs better. They're going to be stored in your liver and in your muscles more often than not. So you can eat more carbs and not have to worry about your health.
Yeah. Because
But that's just,
there is something to be said for like adjusting carbs and fat based on body composition. Because let's just
yeah,
be honest, the more body fat you hold on to, the more likelihood that you may be insulin resistant. So it makes sense to like not be crazy high on the carbohydrates, just from a performance standpoint and overall health standpoint.
yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, my wife has PCOS. We keep her on like, she tends to feel really shitty above 120 grams of carbs per day. Like I feel way better at like 250, 300 grams of carbs per day. But I go above that, I start to feel shitty. So if I need my calories to go even higher, I start bumping up fat. And it's just really challenging to get that many carbs in.
yeah,
So you just figure out what your body likes, and it's not this low carb thing, especially if you're in one of those phases. We talked about the triangle. If you're chasing aesthetics or performance, you need the carbs. If you're chasing performance, carbs are going to be the fuel for pretty much anything we're doing for performance. If
yep,
we're chasing aesthetics, you know what's really good at packing on muscle? In addition to protein, carbs, more so than fat. So in dieting phase, that insulin, the carbs help you retain muscle that we don't want to lose when we're trying to strip body fat off. So, but then when we go maybe to a health phase, maybe we want to drop those down. So it's adjusting. I always view like your macros as levers. Like protein kind of stays where it's at.
hmm
And depending on what phase you're in, the fat and carbs are just going to adjust a little bit. And more often than not, we're just going to adjust the carbs up and down. Like during this phase, we're going to bump up your carbs. Then we're going to pull it back down. Then maybe we need to come up a little bit, and then we're going to pull it back down. Like you're just adjusting it.
yeah. And at no point are we going like keto low. Like
No.
as we're saying all this, like I know it's kind of hard to gauge, like for some people, like not really knowing like what low or high is. And I know some people when they hear like lower carbs in our mind, it could be something as low as like 100 or maybe 150. But
Yes.
when people hear low carb, they're like, oh, no carb. And that causes a whole other list of issues. Like I know with my population, with the ladies over 40, hormonally going super low carb is one of the worst things that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're still in that like 100, 150 grams ish area, that's still plenty to put you in a really good place.
Yeah. So I'll have like someone with PCOS, they'll be generally 80 to 120 grams of carbs per day. But most people that I work with, same thing, 100 to 150 grams of carbs per day. That's what it's considered low. And then when I get them into like weight maintenance, they're generally like this ladies over 35, over 40. I just had someone graduate the program. She was at 225 grams of carbs, maintaining her weight
Yep.
every single day. Like, guess what? That's a lot of pasta she can eat each day and maintain her weight. And then when she wants to go into the dieting phase, guess what? Pretty much all she does is reduce that. She can drop that down to 150, drop any weight she gains, and then go right back up.
Exactly. Because once you get into that place where it's like you actually have control over what you're doing, you have your numbers, you know what you need to do. Like, let's be honest, as much as we talk about like lifelong results, you're going to have those periods of time when you're going to put on a little extra and you're going to have to mini cut here and there. Do you have like
Yes.
any like long-term examples that you've experienced that with where you're like, all right, here's your dieting macros, go back to that for a few weeks and report back?
I mean, there was that client where it's just and myself personally, like holidays I just go all out. Like from like Thanksgiving through New Year's, like I'm not watching my diet. It's a great time to build muscle, but I'm not watching my diet. And kind of same thing with some clients is like, okay, like we're just going to try to aim for maintenance. We're going to bump up our calories. We're just going to maintain. It's just easier. You can try to fight it, but I'll have clients who are high up in the corporate world or they're entrepreneurs and they literally have 1 to 2, especially if their partner is also high up.
Mm-hmm.
Like they might both have holiday parties, like corporate holiday parties, like starting in early November, every single weekend, plus friends, plus family. It's like if there's going to be wine, there's cheese plates, there's all these things. And obviously, we're talking about this in May. I'm not exactly sure when the episode's going to come out, but it's May when we're recording. So it's like, why are we talking about holidays? It's like, well, that's going to come up. And if you're planning on a 6-month diet, guess what? You start in June, 6 months later, we're in the middle of December or end of December going January. So you're in holidays. So you want to plan for that. Um, so if that's every holiday, because it doesn't change that much year to year, every holiday, every single weekend there's something. Let's plan on making that work for you. So we're going to just like increase our calories during that time, focus on other things, just relax, have fun through the holidays. And then afterwards, January 1st, when everything's basically over, you go into your next dieting phase. But instead of just like trying to like fight through it, get shitty results or no results at all, it's like let's build our metabolism back up, build some muscle, have a faster metabolism come January 1st. Oh, the weight comes off easier. So you might gain 5, 10 pounds. And this is me every year. Like I call it like my fluffy 5. Like I'm going to gain 5 or 10 pounds over the holidays. Like it, yeah, I'm just going to enjoy. Also know it's happening. So guess what? I'm just going to plan on January every single year when there's nothing going on for most of the world. Like January and February is kind of boring. There's like you have New Year's at the beginning and then what? Like
Yep.
Valentine's.
Valentine's Day, which is literally one dinner. Like,
Right. Like what's got going on? Not much. So it's a great time to diet because people think like come October, like kids are back in school, but generally the best time of the year to diet is January through like April, May. And then it's like summer hits. You have the summer thing, kids are out of school, your schedule changes. And then it's like, okay, August, but that's a very short amount of time because for me, the holiday season kicks off with Halloween. Like Halloween hits, I love Halloween, so for me that it does. Some people hate it, so they're like, I could care less.
yeah.
It's not till Thanksgiving, but I usually set in my mind when I'm talking about clients, it's like Halloween is that cutoff point of where we need to get, like, we need to be talking a week or two beforehand to clients about, hey, what does your holiday schedule look like so we can better plan for the next couple months because people will get started in August and then be like, oh, my schedule's clear. I'll be fine. Nothing's going to get in my way until next June. Oh wait, there's a giant red flag right in the middle of that.
Yeah. And I like how you talked about the concept of like, it's a great time to put on muscle because a lot of times people get really freaked out because they put on a lot of weight like in a certain season of the year. And let's be honest, if your protein is really, really high and you're working out hard while you're eating these extra calories, a lot of that weight gain is going to be muscle mass. And then it's going to make
Yeah.
your next fat loss phase even easier because you're going to be able to consume more calories while losing weight just to
Yep.
sustain that amount of muscle.
100%. Yeah. It makes it so much easier. So you don't have to worry too much about the weight gain. Obviously, we don't want to, like, if you gain from like mid November to like end of December, like 15 pounds, like that's a little too much. But if you gain
Yeah.
5 pounds, like probably half of it's muscle mass, especially if you're not like you're going hard, you've never really done like a muscle building phase and you're fairly new. Like it's pretty easy to say like maybe half of that's muscle mass. So really you only gain 2.5 pounds of body fat. Like okay, cool. You can lose that in a few weeks.
Yeah.
It'll
And
take 2 weeks to come off.
yeah, and for the people that like it all depends on what you do during that time, right? Like if you're the type of person that will hit like the office parties, do your Christmas thing, Thanksgiving, Halloween, and just those days go a little bit overboard
Yes.
and then stick to the plan the rest of the time, you're only going to gain that like 3 to 5.
Yep.
But if you're the person that uses it as an excuse to order DoorDash or Uber Eats 5, 6 times a week, if you're that person that decides, oh, I'm just not going to care about my lunch anymore because we're in that season, then that's where the 15 pounds comes from.
Yeah, it's the just eating Christmas cookies nonstop, but then also not adjust. Like you can eat Christmas cookies every day, just adjust the rest of your diet to like that's when like maybe have lower carb dinners, like leaner, lower carb dinners, so that you can have those things. Is it the healthiest? No, but it's also temporary, so it's not going to destroy your health in a matter of like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But you just adjust. But if you're not willing to do that, yeah, you are going to have a rough time if you're trying to lose weight and you're like, okay, because I've had clients like this, like, I make like 20 dozen cookies every single year. That's just tradition. And I'm not one to go in and be like, mess with people's traditions. But it's like, okay, well, maybe you shouldn't keep all those in the house. Maybe you should start giving those away to people. Like, I get that's it's your tradition. You don't need 20 dozen Christmas cookies in your house. Give
Yeah.
them away, donate them, give them to friends and family, do these other things with it, get them out and just keep a small amount for you.
Yeah. And that almost gets a little bit into like, how some people are like, it's just my genetics. Like my family is just all of them are overweight. And it's usually not genetics because genetics load the gun, they don't pull the trigger. What
Right.
pulls the trigger are these traditions and these habits that have been built up over generations. And people listening right now, you could be the person to stop that for your kids and your grandkids and their kids if you take the steps to make healthier decisions and not fall into these bad patterns that have happened for what the past possibly 100 years.
Yeah, generations. I mean, that's a legit thing. Um, like you said, genetics load the gun. So what people don't realize, they just think genetics is like you turn genes on and off. So your choices turn certain genes on, certain genes off. So if you're just like, oh, it's my genetics, I'm overweight, like, are you exercising regularly? Are we watching our diet? Are we getting enough sleep? If the answer is like no to all of those, guess what? You're turning the bad genes on and you're keeping the good ones off, the ones you want on. But you can flip that switch and, like you said, be the change in your family that you want to see, because that if you haven't had kids, that's going to go down the line. When you do have kids, they're going to have better genetics. Now, we generally have an older audience, but you're going to set the example for your kids so that they don't have to go through the same shit you've had to go through. Oh, this is what you do. I know for me, like my family, back when I was in seventh grade, they made that switch to become healthier. And it's like, well, now I'm a coach coaching about health. Like, who knows what direction I would have gone, but that got me really interested in health and everything when I had almost no interest in it at all. Now, it's literally my job.
Yeah.
I run
Yeah.
a company about it, but and so does my brother. So you can be that change just by making that conscious decision and just looking at what your habits are. What are your traditions? And there's no reason you necessarily need to change every tradition, but if like you come home every night and binge on Netflix, that habit's really bad. If you come home every night and play video games for 8 hours, that's really bad. You can come home and do it for an hour, but also get everything else in, like make sure you're eating well, getting exercise, getting enough sleep, stress management, do all those things, and then still have fun. I love watching Netflix every once in a while, but I make sure everything else is in line as well.
Yeah. And I like giving like because I know like Andrew Coates put a really good viral thing about this out, like expose your kids to like healthy habits like the gym and other things like that. So like I get so excited when I see people like working out around their kids or with their kids. Is there anything that like you specifically do like around your daughter that you're like, I want her to see this?
We cook all the time. I've reduced a lot of my alcohol consumption. So we cook a lot. I do love cooking. Not everybody likes cooking. We try to get outside every single day. So I have a corgi, which is basically like a crack addict. So we need to get outside to burn off her energy. So we get outside almost every day we can. We let her play in the garden. We have a garden, so this year she'll be able to go in and like pick some of the food we grow and everything in there. I take her on hikes. So from an early age, we go, throw her in the backpack, go hiking with her. She loves that. And then we'll take her to the beach, to streams. We just like get outside and be active with her and then do things with her. A lot of parents will be like, okay, go play. I'm just going to sit on a chair. Like, no, like I am going to be with her. Sometimes it feels silly, but it's way more fun. Like once you're a parent, you don't really care that much anyways, because other parents are like, oh, maybe I should do that too. I'm going to play with her, do things with her instead of just like sitting and watching.
I love that.
So,
And honestly, like as a big little kid, like that's what I'm looking forward to most at that phase of life is like getting into the playing around again. Cause that is something that we lose as adults. We don't play ever.
no, no. I will say I got into like adult play when I kind of got into unconventional fitness.
Hmm.
So one of my best friends, he's big into like he has multiple on it certifications. So steel mace flow, animal flow, steel clubs. I also love all that stuff. So I started getting into like some of that stuff just for fun. I'm like, people are like, why do you do it? I'm like, because it's fun. Like, will it help my physique goal? Probably not. Does it help my health? I mean, it keeps me mobile, actually makes me do mobility work. So that actually does improve my health. But it's just fun. So that's why I did it.
Yeah.
And still do it. Like I just put up a reel before this on like steel clubs. Like I love maces and clubs. I love the flow because it feels like play to me. So I just do it because it's fun. It's actually gets difficult, but it doesn't feel like I'm going to go in and do a hard workout. It's like, no, I just like throw some music in, go do something for like an entire song. So you're just going to be moving for like 3 minutes with a weighted instrument. Okay, you're gonna be tired after that. And then it's like, I need a break. All right, go again. So that's kind of how like I do that. And I've gotten multiple adults who hated the gym. They absolutely despise working out. They're like, I know I need to, I just don't like it. We introduce them to the steel mace, steel clubs, animal flow, more often than not. So the other ones, most people don't. Animal flow can be very difficult.
Yeah.
But it's like I give them a steel mace and they're like, I feel like Xena the Warrior Princess. This is actually super fun. And then they do like 10 minutes of that work and they're like, I am fucking exhausted. Like, yeah. They're like, I just was having fun and now I realize I'm actually really tired. It's like, cool. So we're just going to use this every time you come in the gym. And they're like, when can I use that? That's at the end of your workout. They like get through their workout. Like, cool. Can I use this thing? Yeah. It's like, they're 53 years old and they're like, can I use this thing? Like a kid, like in a candy store, like, can I please? Like, yeah, fuck yeah. This is what brings you into the gym every single day. Fuck yeah. We're going to use this. We're just going to make sure you don't get hurt with it. But let's do that. So find something like if you're struggling with your fitness and you're like barbells and dumbbells bore the hell out of me, like they get you great results. You're going to need to keep them in there, but also maybe you just need to go a different route and use that to motivate you. Like
Yep.
if it's the steel mace, if it's yoga, if it's other things. And then with those people, I treat like the barbell work or cardio or other things as ways to improve that thing you like to do. So if it's yoga, you're never going to be doing like handstands and stuff if you're not strong. If it's the steel mace, like that'll get you to a certain point, but to progress, we need to improve our strength. What's the best way to make sure we are guaranteed to improve strength? Traditional strength training with progressive overload. It's very easy to track. If it's running, endurance work, well, what's the best way to stay injury free? Strength training. So if you view like find the thing you really like to do,
Mhm.
and then view everything else as like, okay, this helps me with this thing. Now I'm going to be more motivated to do those things. I might not enjoy it, but I know it's helping that one thing I really like to do. Awesome. I had a guy who's like, um, he was a tennis player, like in his heart, like it's what he does every week. He was obsessed with tennis. I've never seen anyone outside professional tennis obsessed as much as this dude was with tennis. We absolutely could not hurt him. If he's like, if he was anything that takes away from tennis, I will not come back to the gym.
Yeah.
Like, cool. So we just helped improve. He's like, my tennis game is better. I don't get tired. I can play longer. I don't feel as beat up. All these things. Like, awesome. All these things are now helping you with your tennis game, which you can do the thing you love most. You can now do more of. If it's golf, tons of people get back injuries with golf and shoulder injuries and shit like that. Oh, all these things helped improve my golf game. Now I can play more often. I don't have to worry about getting injured. I enjoy it more and I don't get tired. Like I don't have to feel like I need the cart every single time. I don't get tired walking 18 holes. You think you're going to do those things more? Probably.
Yeah. I mean, it all gets back to realizing what the goal is and what's going to satisfy that goal, like what's going to help you get that much closer. And I think that's a really good place to wrap it up on that. But I can't let you go before I ask the one question that I ask everybody on this podcast. Okay, it basically will tell us, like, is this guy even worth listening? Did I just like waste an hour like listening to a guy that knows nothing? So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, cool. What's your favorite movie and why?
Ah, fuck. Favorite movie
and why?
Ooh, okay. That's a loaded question. I like so many. So favorite. So if I had to pick one that I watch every single year, without question, it's A Christmas Story.
Good choice.
So why? One is like my brother and I, like we relate really well with those characters. We grew up, so I grew up in Gettysburg, so rural area. So a lot of that movie just connects really well with my childhood. But since a kid, we've always loved watching that movie, probably just because we relate to those characters of me relating with the older brother, my brother relating with the younger brother. Every year we watch it multiple times. Like I'll watch it probably 4 or 5 times in the Christmas season. So if I had to pick one movie, I'm like, is it Star Wars? No, that's probably not my all-time favorite. It's got to be A Christmas Story.
That's a good choice.
Home Alone's also up there, but that's the one movie I guarantee you every single year I'm going to watch multiple times.
Yeah, solid choice. I like the seasonal choices. Clearly a Christmas guy here.
My favorite holiday is Halloween, though.
Yeah,
I will say I do also watch Hocus Pocus multiple times.
My girlfriend will love hearing that.
Didn't like the new one that much, but the old one I do like. Actually, I took my wife to Salem this past year. She's never been. Not a city I would. We go up to Maine every year. Not a city I would necessarily recommend everyone go to. Like spend a day or two there. Like if you like Halloween, like definitely worth checking out. I do. I find it a super fun holiday. So we went there on our way back. It was like end of September when we went in. So it was pretty cool. It was fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, it definitely sounds like a cool place to check out. I mean, I'm totally into like horror movies and all that stuff. So, I mean, the witch trials and all that, I would totally be down to see.
It's a cool city for like a day or two. I find it's very touristy, but then you go like to the more historic section and then it's like, oh, that this house was built when? That was cool to see. I was there when I was like a little kid, so I didn't quite remember everything. So going back as an adult was definitely a cool experience.
Yeah, that's kind of how Cooperstown was. It's like a day is solid. Anything past that, nope, let's get out.
Yeah. It's one of those. It's like just like it's a great. So we go and vacation in Maine most years for like 10 days. And so it's like one of those stops between Pennsylvania and Maine because we drive up or Maine. So it's like, okay, what's kind of like in between? Like, hey, you've never been here. Let's go check this place out. So we always try to find like a spot in like New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut to kind of like stop in, check that place out, and then like the next day drive home instead of doing it in one trip.
Yeah. And hey, if you want to make a meathead trip out of it, you could always stop at Mike Boyle's or Eric Cressy's on the way and be like, babe, I swear these are legendary spots.
They are legendary spots. I have been to Elite FTS and I have been to Westside before.
Very nice.
Those were cool trips.
Very nice. I was in Ohio and I was like, oh, what I would do right now to be at Westside. And it was actually before Louis passed away, so it would have been so sweet. But
yeah.
I
got to meet Louis. That was really awesome. He trained us for like 3 days.
Really?
Yeah.
That's sick.
Yeah. We reached out in like college. We're like, hey, we're going to do a college trip. Like go out. It's like, got to meet and train with Louis for like 3 days. And he just like made us do a bunch of sled shit to like get us out of the gym. But he did actually like coach us through like squat and bench and dead. And really like to this day has been like a total game changer.
Yeah. I can't even imagine having like one of the world's best strength coaches just look at you for a day is like worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. It was one of the like, why not ask? It was like, we're a bunch of college students. We love Westside. Love to come out. He's like, yep, come out.
Yeah.
What?
I remember I heard Joe DeFranco talk about how he called the number on the back of the VHS tape and he's like, Louis Simmons, the Westside Barbell. He's like, you pick up your own phone?
That was how he was. He was just this down to earth dude. Like, yeah, just like, I love training. So if you like my stuff and you're a cool person, you're not trying to get anything out of me, where it's like, we just want to train. And he's like, yeah, come out. And we were all bodybuilding at the time. Like none of the powerlifters came with us. And he's like, wait, you guys are all like, you're at a powerlifting gym. We're like, yeah, we're bodybuilders. None of the powerlifters came out, but we love what you do. And we do like powerlifting. So we want to learn from you.
Yeah. I bet he loved it.
He did. Yeah. So that it was well worth it. But to the audience, like sometimes you just have to reach out to people and you're surprised. Like you'll be like, oh, they'll never accept. Like we're just like broke ass college students. We rented a van, stayed at like a Red Roof Inn, like barely could afford it, but reached out and for free, like he paid for our breakfast each day. It's like, yeah, we just went out and trained with one of the best strength coaches the world has ever known.
Jeez. Well, R.I.P. Louis, one of the greats.
R.I.P. I know. But yeah, it was sad to see him go.
Yeah. On that note, I don't want to take up any more of your time because you've been so gracious spending over an hour. So thank you very much. Before you head out, though, I'd love to give you a chance to let everybody know, like if they want more of Chris and they want to know what PWC is all about, like where do they find you?
Yep. So you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Chris_PWC. Very straightforward. I have a Facebook community called Peak Weight Loss Secrets. And then I have a podcast as well called Wild Nutrition. So you can follow me at any of those spots and you can always reach out to me and I'd be happy to answer any questions your audience might have.
Awesome. And for anybody listening, like typing away, like, crap, what did he say? How did he spell that? Don't worry. It's all going to be in the show notes. All you have to do is click and you'll be able to find Chris, no problem. All right. So awesome. Thank you again for coming on, and everybody listening. Hope you have an amazing rest of your week. See you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode and you're a new listener, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss another episode. And if you're a returning listener, I would love your feedback. If you could take 2 seconds to just leave a quick review on iTunes or Spotify and rate the show, that would be greatly appreciated. So thank you in advance and have a great rest of your week.